Hey y'all, it's your captain for all things creative coming at you with a video about that Freaknik documentary and other hip hop news kind of that dropped. So if you are new to this channel, welcome. Please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you're returning, thank you so much for rocking with us. And let's get into the Freaknik of it all. So I'll start by locating myself in relation to Freaknik. Basically, just so y'all know where I'm coming from in this conversation, by the time I was college age in the 2000s, right, the heyday of Freaknik had passed, but I had heard about it through that iconic Little Kim verse on the single Crush on You remix where she says, heat up the clutch, 750 deluxe, then we speed down the hutch, breaking cheese in the Dutch. I'm not the one you sleep with to eat quick. Want a cheap chick? Better go down to Freaknik, right? And even in that song, you had a woman, arguably the queen of hip hop for a long time, insinuating that women who went to Freaknik were unsavory at best, and at the very least, literally sex workers turning tricks, or skeezers, as they used to say, who were busting it open for free. Then, as I got older and really came of age and into my own as a woman in the Me Too era, I heard the stories of all the assaults and the crimes that rhyme with rape, and that made me think of the event as more of a blight on Black history than, a statement exposing the supposed cheap tricks and skeezers and whatnot, right? And then, we heard about the Hulu documentary coming out, and I heard that there were so many people trying to fight what, they were assuming was going to be an expose and they didn't want it to come out. But Hulu finally got the documentary out in March. And if you haven't watched it already, I recommend it, since I'm not going to go into too much detail to spoil too much. But really, the documentary shines in the way it is able to tell a full story of Freaknik, the good and the bad, but it really leaves you feeling with more of a positive sense, of the events. And it got away from, seeing the people who participated, as less than or deviant, and even some people that were exposed, like Cecil on Married to Medicine, shout out to him, you could see that it was just young college people, at the time. And yes, there were some people that had no business being there, that introduced some of the more nefarious elements of, what Freaknik became known for later on. But the history of the event and its ties to HBCUs, and attempts to basically plan a wholesome Black spring break option for people who couldn't go home is really important to note. And even the name Freaknik, I didn't know it started off innocent, since it actually is a reference to a popular song and dance by a singing group named Chic that was called, La Freak. And the song so popular also had a dance, and the chorus is, freak out. La Freak, say Chic, right? It's like a classic song. A lot of people know it. And I never even went there in my mind. When you hear Freaknik, you think of lately you hear freak offs, this freaky stuff. But it really was an innocent, homage to like a pop song almost, right? So even though it started out in the spirit of giving college kids who couldn't go home for spring break a sense of bonding and fun, like all good things in the world, like oxtails and Twitter, it was ruined and got taken over by more greedy and nefarious spirits and influences. And in Freaknik's case, the spearhead of those influences is Uncle Luke, who has his own, career and fame for all his very sexually charged like songs and projects. Some of what Uncle Luke did actually, was fighting against censorship. So that's not to say that Uncle Luke's legacy is all bad, because some of those battles that he won, helps us have any of, the hip hop music that we have today. But a lot of, the people and influences that Uncle Luke brought had nothing to do with, those college kids that were just trying to have fun. And actually, Uncle Luke himself had no business being around those college kids at the time. So, overall, the story of Freaknik relates also to how I feel generally about hip hop, because at its core, when it comes to several artists in the industry, and I mean artists and not just, industry artists, but like artists that happen to have to navigate through the industry and are not plants, the essence of the art form started off as life-giving, and trying to give voice to otherwise voiceless and underrepresented peoples and issues. When hip hop started, you had people rapping about poverty and, roaches in the front, rats in the back, police brutality, like NWA and generational trauma even too. So it really gave an outlet for people to make sense of their pain and sometimes dance to it and just laugh about how cleverly, the artists spoke about it in a way that truly turned ashes into beauty in a lot of ways. But the issue is, like, for every Lauryn Hill or Kendrick Lamar and Tupac, you have 3 to 4 times as many R. Kellys and P. Deadlys, shout out to Gabor for that nickname, that seem to allegedly have poisoned the whole enterprise. So I guess what I wrestle with to this day is whether we just, see these forces as just, the proverbial flies in the ointment that we gotta try our best to swat away, or do we just throw it all away? Now, when I say I wrestle with this question, I mean, I literally got to one point in my life where I heard a couple of sermons, because I was raised Christian, and I found out, a few heartbreaking stories about what mess some artists in the industry were either forced into by choice. Like, most notably lately, Cassie, hearing her story is just so heartbreaking, And, I was one of those Christians that literally threw away all of my hip hop and R&B CDs at one point, deleted downloads, And over time, and still, I find new artists that I respect, and I think I found a happy medium now because I try to listen to, like, the inspirational things or things that, are about maintaining joy and positivity. And I try to do my due diligence, to make sure I'm not supporting, to my knowledge, anyone who's, like, exploiting people and doing crimes. But it's very tricky, to navigate. But especially as, like, a parent now, most time I'm listening to kids' music, classical music, and, like, gospel. But I do have, some artists I like Kendrick Lamar, for example, So even now, as these new headlines keep coming out about these people doing, like, very dangerous and downright, violent and exploitative things to each other in hip hop, and all these entertainment industry predators, that are out there, I ask you, was it worth it to put up with, the Uncle Luke's and the R. Kelly if it meant that through them we got to experience the wonderful body of work produced by, like, the Outcasts and, like, the CeeLo Greens, and other related artists that actually became famous because of Freaknik and, the street teams distributing their music. And really, some of these artists have given us this soundtrack to many key experiences in our life. So I can't answer that question for you, but I would definitely watch the documentary and, keep thinking about it, praying about it, and definitely say your thoughts in the comments. I know that no matter what, you are the master of your fate and the captain of your soul.